got it. It's on.
It's running.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Good evening. Yes, we're good? Okay. So again, just a note, this is the Wednesday, April 5th, 2017 school committee meeting. I want to welcome everyone who's here. We normally don't get this kind of turnout, so this is awesome to see so many people in the community concerned and invested in the schools. I'm Peter Gunn. I'm normally the secretary, but I'm sitting in this seat tonight because our chair is away dealing with a pressing family concern, and the mayor, who is also a member of the school committee, is at the city council meeting, which is occurring at the exact same time. So we are going to open tonight with public speak, and we normally have a podium and a microphone. So I'm trying to figure out, and I should have asked this before we went on, where people should stand so they can be heard.
I mean, I think we can people just stand where they are. And
Yeah, probably, and we'll try to turn around. And I don't know how many of you would like to speak. We have matters outlined here on our agenda, and they involve an appeal from a parent regarding their child. Then we have the next item on the agenda is the student walkout at East Hampton High School. I'm just reading this for anyone who doesn't have it. The third is immigration concerns. We also have a matter for action tonight we do need before we depart to take care of an out-of-state field trip request. Ordinarily, during the public speak, what we ask is that people limit their remarks to approximately 2 minutes. And I won't have a stopwatch, but we'll try to stay close to that. We would ask that people who wish to speak, if you are adding something new, if you just want to speak and say that you agree with the previous speaker, that's great. But we would, if we get pressed for time, we will carry this discussion over into our next meeting, which is scheduled for Tuesday, April 11th. And we will give everyone the opportunity to speak, but we do want to have some opportunity as a committee tonight to talk about the concerns. So even if a final decision on some of the matters here may not be taken until next week. Okay? So trying to figure out how we would choose in what order people should speak, because I arrived late, so I have no idea about who came. Yes?
Please make sure that they identify themselves with their name and help me out with the spelling, please.
Right. What we would ask is if you could say your name and your address in the city, right? And loudly and clearly enough so that we can record the information.
Mr. Gunn, if I may?
Yes.
I would like to start, if I could.
Sure.
And I actually have a letter to present, actually, to you as part of taking this opportunity.
Okay, so we are going to have volume. You know what I might ask is if you come to the middle of the room, and I realize that wherever you speak, somebody's going to be behind you, but if you start here and then go to the middle of the room and speak, perhaps that will be most helpful. Thank you for your cooperation on that. Okay.
So we presented a letter to you. First of all, I'll start off. My name is Jonathan Poirier. I live at 129 Parsons Street. And I have two students who are East Hampton High School students, and I'm here as a concerned parent. But I'm also part of a larger group of parents that have gotten together since the incident occurred. And with the emergency meeting that was put in front of us, we quickly drafted a little letter last night. If I may, I'd like to read it so everybody else in the room can hear what we presented to you. Dear committee members, this letter comes to you from a group of parents concerned about the current administration of East Hampton High School. We expect that our school systems will foster a climate where all students, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, gender, or gendered identity, sexual orientation, or disability status, can feel welcomed, supported, and heard when they have a concern or conflict. We expect that our schools will support diversity and offer an inclusiveness curriculum that extends beyond the classroom and into the whole school environment. However, we have quickly learned, after hearing multiple accounts from other parents, teachers, and students over the past week, that EHS falls sadly short of those expectations. We feel that the incident that occurred after the school in East Hampton parking lot on Wednesday, March 29th, 2017, was preventable and ultimately predictable, and that the failure to do so can largely be attributed to the lack of leadership and improper conduct from certain school administrators, and we primarily name Principal Burke. We feel that the incident occurred not from an isolated flare-up between teenage boys, but rather after many weeks and months of smaller incidents that were not properly addressed by Principal Burke, who knew or should have known what was going on between the boys. Our group has heard many stories about events involving Principal Burke during his administration that alleged, to name a few, verbal assaults, bullying, and failure to follow school rules and procedures. We have heard narratives ranging from indifference to negligence and dereliction of his administration's responsibility to maintain a safe, secure, and welcoming school for all students. These are narratives from both teachers and students who have turned away, or have been turned away, and have had their concerns severely dismissed by Principal Burke. In the end, the narratives tell a story of a school where many staff and students feel unsafe, and we feel that this is unacceptable. We understand that these are serious allegations and that they may surprise you, and that you will need to perform your own investigations. However, we are requesting immediate action as follows. Number one, we'd like to see the removal of Principal Burke from his current responsibilities at EHS and the prompt investigation into his alleged misconduct as principal at EHS. We have lost faith in his ability to lead EHS and maintain a safe environment for our children. Second, the installation of a more suitable school resource officer. We believe a conflict of interest now exists for Officer Shadle. Now we do not ask for these actions frivolously, and we respectfully ask that you consider or seriously consider our requests. We also understand the responsibilities of committee members are challenging, and we respect the work that you do. However, we also know that our students and teachers do not feel safe within our schools, and we are bringing this information to your attention. It's now up to this committee to take the actions necessary to remedy this situation. We are confident that you will. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have other people who would like to take advantage of public speak to address this or other items on the agenda. Thank you.
My name is Noreen Nardi. I live at 12 Willow Circle. I have a senior in the high school, and I just want to say I agree with everything that Jonathan Poirier said.
Thank you.
I'm Natalie Poirier, 129 Parsons Street, Isabel Mooker, my children. I've been part of this school for a very long time as an employee, as a volunteer, as I would say a team player. I strongly agree with everything John said. I have been participating and taking a lot of narratives. There's a lot of information that I feel everyone is not aware of because of fear, including my own. I've had information for a long time. I wasn't able to reach out and react, and I feel slightly responsible for not being able to have this not happen. It's a serious situation. I appreciate all of you listening and that you're here. We really need to stand up for our community because East Hampton is a safe and wonderful community. And the fact that we don't feel safe with our kids in the schools is beyond my level of understanding. And I'm not saying this, clearly I'm emotional, but I have been spending a lot of time doing a lot of inside investigation with anonymous faculty, children, and community members, and it's overwhelming. I feel more empowered. I'm appreciating that we've been heard. We're trying to follow the appropriate chain of commands, and I'm really proud of everybody that we were willing to do that. Nancy was willing to speak with us today. I commend her for being able to hear such strong information that's frightening and alarming. I'm not trying to attack anybody on a human level, but we need a true leader that will listen to our children, will respond, will listen to our staff, and will help keep this town that I've believed in for 18 years. And when everyone asked us where we should move, we chose this town. Our friends wanted us to live elsewhere. We volunteered in the schools. I ended up getting hired. I know most of your kids. I love them. I love our staff. I sat on the committee to help hire Nancy Follansbee because I felt she was a true leader. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Other people who would like to speak. Sorry, I'm not trying to ignore anyone who's behind me.
I'd
Just
like to very
road-
briefly say, my name is Pete Christopherly, at 54 Coleman Road in Southampton. My son is a school choice student. I just want to remind the community that this goes beyond the school too. We have lawn signs being stolen in our community that are lawn signs that welcome people. We have graffiti on Mount Tom that is hateful. We have to start somewhere.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, I apologize. Can we just have you come out here? I can rotate this. I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable by where they're speaking. That's great.
Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Cindy Mojica and I live at 14 Clark Avenue. And I have like my second language is English, so I just wrote it down. I would like to start by saying that my daughter is part of the 2.1% minority in EHS. As a parent, it terrifies me that my kid could be target of discrimination at such a young age. And this is what brought me tonight here. We often measure violence of how many punches someone gives or receives, but we never look at the psychology of abuse. I have very strong-minded daughter that is well informed of history and her culture. I know that in an event something like this happened to her, like it happened to that other girl, the ending of the solution will be totally different. Parents, you have to understand whether you agree or not, we are no longer in 1960s or before that. Someone can harass and do discriminatory things and not get in trouble. There is a civil rights law that protects all citizens, white, black, Latino, Muslim, all of us. Us as adults should teach our children that yes, they have the right to express themselves, as the First Amendment said. Expressing and saying things are two different things, and you should explain this to your kids, since it looks like they don't teach this in school. When your kid leaves the nest and goes to the real world and express like this about a coworker or a CEO or a professor, they will get a legal problem and affect them for the rest of their lives. At this point, it might be funny for some parents to see their child stealing property from other people and destroying it. But it won't be funny if the owner of that property will get out a gun and hurt your kid. So, like it just happened in Long Meadow. It might be normal for your family to express racial slur at home or with acquaintance, which is okay. It's what you're being raised with. But it won't be funny when your child gets arrested for harassment, verbal intimidation, use words to intimidate someone, and many more. All of them with a federal criminal charge, which means it will be in their records forever. To close my statement tonight, my belief is that everyone should respect each other and not sorts of violence should pass. They are kids and they will learn. If you are white, you can't tell me you understand because you will never go through what this 2.1% of EHS might confront and is confronting at this moment. And as a parent, you can classify me as a liberal or because it's not about politics. This is about what is right and what is wrong. And this time, the administration of EHS failed to help these students and many more that are silent because their fear of what they will happen to them because of the privilege that these kids have given by the administration the position of their parents within the school system and their peers. Since nothing has, since nothing has been done to protect this kid that had been intimidated, bullied by media or not. These acts by Mr. Principal Burke should be reported to this OCOR. There are things that the school should do when things like this happen. And there's a department that it should be contacted if the principal does not know what to do. And that is the department of the OCR. It covers all of this. Thank you.
I just ask for, if anyone has anything in writing that they would like us to keep, we can all go back and look at our notes, we can look at the tape, but if anyone has remarks that are written out or typed out and they're willing, you do not have to. But it's just helpful when we're reflecting and deliberating on your comments. If we can go back to the text of your own words, that's always ideal. Okay? So, yes.
Hi, I'm Meg Hollenbeck at 29 Woburn Street. And I think it's worth taking the time to say this could be something that could really divide our community. And I know there's already stuff out there that does. But this should be a time of healing and repairing and coming together and moving forward. It's really important for you guys as school committee to think about who is leading us that way in the high school with our kids, who's leading by example, and what example is he putting out there. We need to come together as a community to move forward. Dividing more will only create bigger problems, bigger fights, bigger whatever. And we're each responsible for that, but we're also responsible to know that we send our kids to a high school and he's going to lead them. And I'm not sure that's happening right now. In fact, I question whether or not he's dividing them further and ultimately maybe creating an environment that accepts more violence and division.
Thanks, Meg.
Thank you.
I wanted to speak. I'm Amy Pybus, 2 Oak Street. I just wanted to say, obviously, there's been a lot of attention on this issue. There were 4 young boys involved. I feel very strongly that there is a need in the school right now to get some counselors in there to be dealing with these boys directly, as well as to be dealing with the rest of the student body and to have those people available for the students to go and talk to if they need it. That's it. Thank you.
Other, please.
Amy Levesque, 38 Spring Street. So I just wanted to say a little bit about, this is a public school, and I strongly believe in public schools. But it's also, Massachusetts, we have charters and we have school choice. And a small town like East Hampton with a pretty small high school, an event like this can be pretty detrimental to our school going forward in our community. So my concern is echoed here with the leadership. And where the leadership is to, there's a discipline piece, which I'm not that interested in at this point. We're educators. Where's the education happening earlier in the school year around these issues that may or may not have created a culture that might not have led to events that we have seen? So I would question the principal. There's a letter that went out by you, the superintendent, about what actions were taken and the discipline and those kinds of things. And there were some things said about what will happen in the future. And all of that's wonderful. But what didn't happen in the past doesn't give me confidence that this person, Principal Burke, is the principal to take this town forward and to heal from this. And so I wanted to echo that in terms of just keeping this as like a broader issue. We're not just East Hampton, we are a town that we're trying to attract people to come to our school that is quite small, and losing a lot of students to charter and other things. And so this is pretty devastating at this point for our little town.
Please.
My name is Anne Rasmussen. I live at 44 Carolyn Circle. I have, my family and I have lived here for 20 years. We have 2 children at White Brook Middle School, both of whom are minorities. And it scares me to death what I've heard about, because, ever since the election, there are certain elements of the community that, are aligning themselves with more racist, more bigoted views, and they're feeling emboldened. And I've never been so glad that I live in the little liberal bubble that I live in, because I can't imagine if it's like this in East Hampton, Massachusetts. What is it like in red states? What is it like in other parts of the country? I am very nervous about my son beginning high school next year. We're already gonna have to have that conversation about when you're out with your friends, put your hood down, look the cops in the eyes, keep your hands where they can see them. That scares me to death too. But to have my school system be another area where my child could potentially be victimized is completely unacceptable to me. I understand and value the work that you guys do, and I know it's hard working with our children, but there's a covenant that comes along with doing that because we're raising lives. And I just want you to know that we are all counting on you to do the right thing, because the consequences can be devastating.
Are there other people who would like to address the committee on this topic at this point? We do appreciate you coming and sharing your thoughts with us. So if you're wondering if you should speak, seize the moment.
My name is Barbara O'Brien. I live at 3 Button Road here in East Hampton. And just a simple question. Do we have a student's Bill of Rights that applies to each and every student in the school system, so that when they come, parents will know, the students will know what is expected of them and what some of the consequences would be if they break away from the Bill of Rights, because it should apply to everyone evenly.
Thank you. Yes, please.
I'm Debbie Patterson. I also live at 3 Button Road. And I think what concerns me the most about this is it wasn't a single incident that led to a knee-jerk reaction by the students. They wouldn't have en masse gone out and marched down the street if they hadn't felt like this was a last-ditch effort. And the thoughts that it's gone on that long that led to 200 students feeling like something needed to change concerns me. That who was supposed to be keeping an eye on this? And I think all of those students should be thanked for deciding that there was a peaceful way to try and bring attention to this.
I have to say something. My name is Landon Jenkins, 5 Floyd Court, and my son was involved in this. I believe that suspension would have been sufficient, but criminal charges was excessive. And I'm concerned about the precedent that this is going to set. Because in the future, if a kid throws one punch, like my kid did, I expect him to be suspended for 5 days, criminal charges, the police to arrest them, handcuff them, fingerprint them, and they have to face legal charges, and also the parent's gonna have to get an attorney for one punch. That's a precedent going forward.
Anyone else who would like to speak to this issue? If you want to speak to another issue, just hold for a second longer, a moment longer. I'm sorry. Yes, please. I
My name
apologize.
is Yassine Zayan. I don't actually live in East Hampton, but this is a beautiful town. I have friends who live here, and their kids, they go to East Hampton High School. And my wife and I have actually 2 little children, And we were thinking at some point, you know, to come and live in this town. I'm in the real estate business, and in real estate, when you're going to buy a house, the first thing you look at is the ratings of the schools and their performance. So the school system, in my opinion, reflects on the whole town and society that we live in. So investing in education and teaching the kids, you know, the proper manners, how to, you know, be good colleagues and live with one another, respect one another is very important. So, and because this is such a great, you know, issue, I see a lot of concern of parents here, which is a good sign, and it shows that, you know, there's got to be some changes, and I believe in the community they're also concerned and they're taking notes, and hopefully these incidents don't happen in the future, and the East Hampton schools will be a model for other towns as well, and that's what attracts new communities to come here and live here as well.
Right, and I will say that I imagine that this conversation will continue in future meetings, so if you want to take time to think about what has been expressed by your fellow, you know, townspeople, city residents, excuse me, and join us at the meeting next week or at some future time. You know, I'll speak only for myself, but as someone who's served on the committee now for 9 years, it's extraordinarily helpful to have your input. If you're uncomfortable with public speaking, sharing a letter, we read all of them. They become part of the public record and part of our deliberations. So please, thank you to we had a baker's dozen tonight, to the 13 people who have spoken and heartfelt remarks on this, and we appreciate that very much, and we would encourage more folks to come forward in the future. Is there anyone who would like to speak on another matter? We have other matters that we're going to be working on this evening.
I think you have, I'm Patrick Bruff, 107 Brick Street, East Hampton. I'd like to talk to everybody here and just say that I have been to probably a dozen or so, maybe 24 meetings over the last year and a half between here and City Council. This is probably the most people I've ever seen in a school committee meeting. So don't just come to this meeting and don't come to the meeting next week. These meetings are open to everybody. The schedule goes out. Come to these meetings. Bring your concerns to the school committee. I'm just saying, don't let this be the one time you come to one of these meetings and speak. Do it more. Do it often.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would echo that, and I think that we have
We'll get a bigger room? Just kidding.
Well, normally,
Just saying,
sorry, this room is warm,
Normally
and
we have the
we normally do have the upstairs. We called this meeting quickly as we can, we need to just understand why the meeting couldn't happen more rapidly. There are public notice laws regarding the posting of a meeting, and there needs to be a certain amount of time between when we post a meeting and we can actually hold that meeting. So part of the reason that this was the earliest date, and because this date is also a date when the City Council had their regularly scheduled meeting upstairs, we thought it was more important to have the meeting as soon as we could in this space rather than waiting for the availability of the space upstairs. We were also trying to find a date when the largest number of school committee members could be here on your behalf to listen to your thoughts and to be able to deliberate as effectively as we can. And even having one person away is challenging because everyone brings important things to this conversation. So thank you for your understanding for all of that. Is there anyone who wants to speak on anything else at this stage? Because what I'm going to suggest to folks is that we will not take offense if you choose to move out of this room.
Can I say though, before people do leave, I really appreciate, I know we all do,
I really appreciate the turnout. I really appreciate what I've been hearing from people. I would love to hear more. I am, often kind of admittedly hard to get a hold of, but I am on Facebook a lot. My name is Sarah Hunter. I have a cell phone number. I don't mind sharing it with you. I don't think anybody's going to write it down if I share it here, though. So, but if you message me, I'll give it to you. I would love to talk more and hear more, and it's always good to hear from you. So, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Can I piggyback on that? Just that, we're hearing some real concerns about past situations, and it would be really beneficial if we had some specifics going forward. So
we don't
we are
often hear about that,
absolutely
yeah.
picking up on, the sense that there's a bigger problem here, but it would be really beneficial to know some specifics.
And I would just add that in terms of process, that we appreciate the fact that people have, to some extent that I can't document at the moment, but it is my sense that there has been some effort to initiate conversations with people, by people who are concerned, with the people and the issues that they're concerned about. I know that a group of people were able to meet with the superintendent today, and I would urge people to continue to do that, and then to come here, because it's often the case that questions get raised about specific things that we cannot investigate in the committee of the whole here in real time.
Right.
And having the advantage of the concerns brought specifically to the building administrator, to the superintendent's office, and then certainly coming here to emphasize your support for further consideration of them is vital. But I don't want anyone to hang on the moment right now that somehow we're able at this moment to make any sort of formal decisions in regards to some of the questions that were posed. We will track down answers. Actions that have been asked to be taken, it is highly unlikely, absent a motion by someone on the school committee, that we would take any action this evening, but it is certainly true that we'll take all of these concerns under consideration and try, in the spirit that people have already applauded the students for displaying, to proceed in a way that is as respectful of the due process rights of everyone who's involved in the situation to the fullest extent that we can.
And I would just like to say that I did meet with 2 parent groups today. It was very helpful for me, and I encourage anyone who would like to come and speak with me to call, and we'll set up a meeting. I do want to hear what you're thinking, what your thoughts are, and appreciate those who've taken the time to provide feedback to me either through emails or through meetings. So thank you to those of you who've done that already. And I encourage anyone here in this room or anyone you know to please let them know that I'm available. And looking forward to talking to anyone who wants to talk to me.
Okay. So with that said, I would ask that the committee consider, if it's willing, to changing the sequence of the discussion here. So I would suggest that we move to item B and just try to bring together some of our thoughts based on what the superintendent has provided before, what we've received in writing to this point about the events, the student walkout at East Hampton High School, and then perhaps some of the people here, that will satisfy their interest in what's ahead of us as well. So is that all right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's do that. I also, and I have to apologize to the committee and to the people in the room. I have a work obligation at 7:30 tonight, so we will draw this meeting to whatever kind of closure we can at 7:25 and resume and continue it next Tuesday. Okay, so just so that people understand that if we proceed quickly, it's just to try to be efficient there. Okay, so I would ask at this point, Superintendent Halsey, if you would give us an update. You've provided us some information, but perhaps given all of the recent events, if you would give us an update on the student walkout at East Hampton High School.
Certainly. So I did send out an email to all families this morning. The purpose of the email was to try to report in a factual way the events that occurred on Wednesday afternoon and following Wednesday afternoon on Thursday, and our response to those events, and some information on what we are and are not able to do in terms of discipline of students. I hope if you did not get the email that you let me know, and I'll get it to you somehow. I also wanted to let you know about things that are currently in place in our high school And we are very proud of our high school, and we're very proud of our students, every one of our students, and we're proud of the initiative that our students have taken. As I'm going to echo what others have said here this evening, we want to hear from you. We are not able to take care of issues if we don't know that they exist. So we want our students to let us know. If you feel like your teachers aren't hearing you, go to your principal. If you feel like your principal's not hearing you, then come to me. If you feel that I'm not hearing you, you have the school committee to come to. So that's sort of the chain of command. And we're all here to listen. We're all here to problem solve together. I did, at the end of the email, talk about a little bit about some of the plans that we have. And I'd like to just read to you a email that I got this afternoon. You know, I've been talking with my Director of Curriculum, Julianne Levin, and Principal Burke about our need to be proactive, about thinking about what we're going to do to help heal the turmoil that's occurred and to go forward in a very positive way. I received this email this afternoon, and I think this is just a piece of what we're planning to do. It gives you an idea of what we're planning to do. This is written to me by my curriculum director. Sue Wilson, Kevin Burke, and I met today and discussed the following plan. We would like to suspend the regular courses at EHS on Thursday, May 18th, and respond to the students' walkout with a teach-in. The teach-in would consist of workshops on topics that promote respect for diversity and strategies for dialogue in the East Hampton community. The workshops would be offered by various community resources, including the Social Justice and Equity Initiative at the Collaborative of Educational Services, and would be open to teachers, students, and community members. Participants would attend workshops during the morning and would come together in the afternoon to commit to short and long-term goals for promoting a positive school and community culture that gives voice and equity to all members. After May 18th, we would like to further develop a plan to conduct a needs assessment for diverse voices in the curriculum, as well as use structures in the school to continue positive conversations around social justice and equity with teachers, students, and community members. And this is the last bit to me. Please let us know what you think. We'll be reaching out to various resources that have been recommended by many constituents soon to plan the workshops for May 18th. Thank you. So this was a start in terms of approaches that we are planning to take to address the issues that have come before us and that we're well aware of after the events that have happened. With the parents I spoke with today, I asked that, you know, they continue to collaborate with me. That collaboration is so important to me. Their voices and their concerns and being part of a collaborative process where we're all together and our students to heal our schools, to heal what has happened, and to move forward in a very positive direction. And I am confident that that's exactly what we will do. We have so many good people with so many good ideas, and I'm confident that we will come together in a very positive way. And again, I just can't say this enough. You know, I welcome each and every one of you to get in touch with me. If you want to meet with me in groups, if you want to meet with me separately, if you want to send me an email, you know, I encourage everything, every bit of communication that you wish to send to me. And already many of you have shared many good ideas, and I've discussed those with my administrative team. And we're using some of the ideas that some of you have sent to us already in email. So thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your commitment. And I know together we are going to be stronger than ever in our district and in our high school.
Thank you.
Nancy, can I ask you a question? You've got a date for the teach-in, and I think that's a great start. But it's May 18th, which is quite a distance away from everybody's feelings today. Is there any way that we can, I don't know what the thinking is when you set the date, but I'm wondering if there's any way that that date can be brought forward. I mean, you're talking well over a month and a half from tonight before we have this event, and I'm just wondering if there's any way to move that up.
And this was a draft date. I think that, they have to get in touch with the people who are going to come in and lead this process with us and see what dates that are available. I think this was an outside date. If we can get people in earlier and we can get this organized earlier, we certainly will do it sooner. But there's going to take some time to get it organized, and we also have to get the outside experts that we're going to bring in available. We have to find out when they're available. But in the meantime, I don't want you to believe that this is all we're doing, because there will be ongoing meetings with students, with families, with anyone who wants to come in and meet with us. I know Principal Burke and Assistant Principal Wilson have been meeting with small groups of students. They intend to do that more, because we learned after the forum that we had in the gymnasium on Thursday after the walk, that some of our students didn't feel comfortable standing up and expressing their concerns or asking their questions in a large group. So we want to provide the format for every student, to feel comfortable. Some of these will happen in their classrooms, some group discussions in their classrooms, and other ways that we can get our students together and hear their voices and hear their concerns and engage in a two-way conversation.
And will we be able to see that list, that scheduled list of?
I will certainly keep you and the community updated on everything that we do and plan to do. I think it's important. One lesson that's come out of this is that we need to communicate better. We need to communicate all the things that we're doing, all the things that we're planning to do. So yes, you will see an improved amount of communication about what we're doing to address the issues, the concerns, and the questions that arose this evening. In one of my parent groups today, one of the parents said to me that they get a number of robocalls about programs and about events, and they said they like them. We sometimes wonder if we robocall people to death, but they did like them, but they also want to know more about this kind of thing. What are we doing to address the issues that have divided us, at least temporarily, not permanently? But I think they also have provided us with many teachable moments. And I know that many of my teachers at the high school used Thursday after the students came back to the high school to debrief and to talk about that, to get into groups. I see some of the students here, and I think some of you may have participated in that. And so again, we need to keep the lines of communication open. We need to communicate, and a variety of different formats. And we will keep you informed about what's going on in our schools. And again, appreciate your interest, appreciate you being here tonight. It means so much to all of us.
Thank you, Nancy. I want to just clarify something. I was asked by a citizen about asking a question, and by strict rules of order, we would not do that, because we open up the possibility that then there could be a series of questions. I guess what I would ask is, if we make an efficient use of the time, we could take a question perhaps at the end, if that's agreeable. But I'd like to be sure that everyone on this committee gets a chance to ask and speak before we interchange, if that's okay. I don't want to deny anyone the right to pose questions to us. I just want to be sure that questions like the one that Cynthia just posed get answered fully, so that we can be prepared to deliberate, and then we would open it back up to taking citizen questions, if that's okay.
The one thing I would think about, Peter, is just a suggestion, is that because we have a time frame here and other things on our agenda that we have to attend to, that we record every question. And if we
Yes.
don't have time to answer them today, and I'm guessing that we won't, that we make sure that we answer them at the next school committee meeting, or send an answer out in emails, or maybe the group here can help us think about.
Right, and I would actually go a
best way
step
to do
further
that.
and say that today what we'll do is we'll take the questions, we'll take the comments. I think if we were to try to respond to so many of the things that are important that have been expressed, that we would run well past time, and we would deny some people the opportunity. So I think we would get the questions on the record and pledge that in the next open speak, as part of our next meeting, we would try to address as many of them as possible based on the information that we've gathered.
And that meeting's
Hope
on
that's agreeable.
Tuesday.
Right, and that meeting is this coming Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay? So with that understanding, yes.
I just have two questions here. That I'm looking at this letter and listening to everything that's happening, and I think there's some real pressing things specifically with the conflict of interest that could possibly exist for Officer Shadle. And I'd like us to talk about that, maybe not make a decision in this moment, but I think it's important to talk about. And the concerns about the principal in the student body and the parents having confidence in even expressing their concerns with him if they in the past haven't felt heard. So I'm wondering.
So Casey, I don't think we're really prepared to address the conflict of interest with the school resource officer this evening.
Okay.
You know, I think that's a bigger question. And in terms of the concerns, I think what we need to do is get some more information on that. You know, I wrote down a note about sending out a survey to an anonymous survey to students and an anonymous survey to teachers. So they shouldn't feel threatened. It would be coming from me. Be anonymous, so you can put down, and we'd have some questions and some space for comments. So that would be one way we could collect information and share it out. I would hope at the next meeting we can get that done before that.
That would be very helpful.
Thank you. Are there other questions that people would like to ask of the superintendent and the report that she just gave? Or comments? Yes?
I appreciate the forward-looking perspective we're taking here and really thinking about ways to grow and heal moving forward. But I also do think that the community still has a lot of questions about incidents that did happen and response. And I have had the opportunity to get some clarification on that. But I am interested to know more about whether the decision to press criminal charges was something that the district decided, or is that originating in the police, or does that originate in the family? Does she have a family? I don't know how that works, and I would like to learn more about the district's role in that procedure.
And I think it might be helpful, I mean, it might be helpful to have Chief Alberti come and address that issue.
Yes.
I think he would be the best person to address that issue.
Does anyone else on the committee want to comment or ask questions of the superintendent? I think that.
I do have a question.
Yep, please.
It's to piggyback the question of conflict of interest. How has it been? What is the atmosphere in the school with Officer Shadle? I'm assuming he's still showing up as...
No, Officer Shadle's been on medical leave.
Okay.
He's been on medical leave for at least a month, maybe longer, and he will probably be on
Did not
medical
know that.
leave until close to the end of the school year, if not the end of the school year.
So right now, that's not an issue?
Yes.
Okay.
The other comment that I wanted to make is that as much as, you know, this incident seems to be bringing to light some real issues that exist in our district, and I think that exist in our culture much more broadly. I don't think these are unique to East Hampton. I think this is a problem that has historically plagued American culture for a long time, and we're certainly seeing a cultural moment of tensions and discrimination sort of exacerbated right now. And so it can be disheartening to discover these kinds of feelings in your own district. But I am also really, really heartened by our high school student population in that they clearly recognized an issue. They recognized something that they believed was an injustice, and that takes critical thinking skills. That takes the ability to place an incident in context, which is something that educators are really working to cultivate in students as thinkers. And it takes strength of character to put yourself forward, to stand up for your community, and to do it in a really useful, respectful way, to find access to you, Nancy, and to the mayor, and to have their voices heard. I think that speaks to something really great about East Hampton, that exists in our student body, and that they are exercising their voices. And so I really want to thank you and the mayor for immediately clearing time in making space to address that walkout and to give the students another opportunity to be heard. I can imagine other districts where there would be punitive measures for asserting yourself as a minor in a school situation, and instead our district really embraced their voices, and I think we're continuing to figure out more ways to hear from our students more consistently. So I just want to express my appreciation for both the students and for all the people in the district who are helping to cultivate a school community where that's possible for students to take that kind of initiative.
And Marissa, I agree with everything you say. You said the students were very respectful when they came here to the municipal building, and you know, they were coming with the focus on acceptance and love, and yeah, you have to be very proud of the initiative that they took.
Anyone else have questions?
I'm Andrew Beck. I just want to piggyback that I do, like, I was one of the ones who was walking in the march, and it was me as well as some of my friends' idea to come here, so we just want to thank you for seeing us, and like, we didn't want to come to go against the administration. We wanted to come to show our unity, and so I thank you.
Well, and your voices came across loudly and clearly, and we thank you for that.
Thank you. There's some dogs that are very excited about each other outside. That's the background hum. Well, I want to thank everyone on this issue for continuing to try to grapple with things that are moving very rapidly. I know as a member of the school committee who tries to stay informed, some of the concerns that have been expressed related to this are new to me. And I apologize to people in the community who believe that I should have been aware of them. Perhaps I could have been more so, but I think at this point, knowing the concerns of people, I'm confident in the ability of Superintendent Follansbee and the school committee here to do a good job of pursuing a better understanding of how we got here and making a good plan consistent with our overall strategic plan of where we're going to go forward. I don't know. There was someone who wanted to ask one last question for the record for us, but they may have departed. Did I miss?
It was a student.
Oh, I apologize.
She's just down the hall.
Okay. If she wants to come back, I do apologize for asking her to hold the question, but
Can I ask a question?
yes.
Is Officer Shadle hired by the East Hampton High School, or is he appointed by the police department?
Police department. He's the police department.
He's paid for by.
Yes, they paid for him to be a school resource officer.
And does the school have say in who is?
No.
Hi. Okay, so so the first question was who does the hiring, and the second question is the participation of the superintendent and the school committee in who is placed in the school. Great. I just want to be sure we've got those. Is that good?
You know, what I want to make sure you understand is it's a police department decision. They might ask us for our thoughts, but ultimately they're the ones who make the decision and do the hire for that position.
So you had a question? Yes.
I'm Samantha Garcia. I'm a senior at East Hampton High School. I had a comment / question. So you mentioned, Ms. Follansbee, how Principal Burke and Ms. Wilson have been meeting with small groups, but they've only been meeting with the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer of each class, and that's not at all the voices that need to be heard. Like, we need to hear everyone's voice, not just the representatives of our class. So that's just.
I understand that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I ask a question? It may not be answered now, that's fine, but
Right,
just
yeah.
who would be the person or bodies responsible for investigating Principal Burke in terms of actions taken and known about, and how is that process handled?
that would be my responsibility. The superintendent is responsible for the hiring, the evaluation of their building administrators, of all administrators in the district.
I have something as well, if it's okay to say.
I'm trying to, I may not have, have we got names? Are you sure? I know, it's very hard. I've got some notes. We'll get together
Yeah,
and try to
I've got
piece it
some.
together with the video. So sorry.
I'm Barbara O'Brien.
Barbara O'Brien,
and
thank
I
you.
spoke earlier.
Yep, thank you.
My daughter is the editor of the student newspaper, and she's here. I've been trying to give her some signals to speak up. So hopefully she'll join in after I do.
Have her listen to NPR on the way home. There's a great story about student journalists making a huge impact at a high school in
Yes,
Kansas.
I told her about that
Yeah.
right before we came.
I know, it's hard.
think
It's
it would
hard.
energize her. However, she recently, and other members of the newspaper, sent a survey out to the students at the high school before the incident and before the walk, asking about how did they feel safe in school, what were their feelings about discrimination and things like that. And she is in the process of tallying all that. So that might be a really good resource for you guys to see as well, because that was before everything hit the fan, so to speak, but that gives you precedence that there has been an ongoing problem that students have been concerned about. So I don't know if she'd like to say a few words about it.
We did focus on more politics nationwide, but some students did respond with their feelings, like, on a more personal level. So I can definitely share some of the responses, and most, like, 99% of them were anonymous, but that will also be helpful.
And I apologize. I'm maybe the only person who doesn't know your name off the top of my head. So
Karina Patterson?
thank you.
See? Okay.
Karina.
Yes.
Karina.
Karina.
Thank you, Karina, and thank you, Samantha, and others who've added additional questions here. Okay, please feel free, as questions occur to you, to send them to the school committee. You can send them to us individually or collectively. You can send them to the chair, Deb Luznia. All of this information is available on the website. All of us see the information that comes in. So whichever you prefer, you can stop by, and we would welcome it. Yes, I'm
The
sorry.
city website. There's-
Yes,
okay.
correct. Well, actually,
The school.
the school website, so
Okay.
epsd.us,
Okay.
right. All I have to do now is put in the EP and the rest of it, it does it for me, so I forget, sorry. Okay, yes,
Can I make one short comment?
briefly, please, thank you.
You're doing a lot.
And I apologize, did you identify yourself before?
No, I didn't. Emily Lewis.
Emily Lewis,
I'm a
thank you.
resident of Sampson.
Thank you.
You're doing a lot in May and the coming year, I assume. I would just like to say that underscore that this has to be, whatever you're doing, much of it should be done every year, forever, because
You're absolutely right.
things have to be learned and reinforced and learned again, and then there's new people. So that it be put into part of the reading of your programs.
You're absolutely right. We plan to have this be something that's systemic and is ongoing.
Right, and I think that that's consistent with what we were saying to the community about coming to the meetings, is that just as your attendance here, we hope will not be episodic, but an ongoing investment, as Pat suggested to you before, and our attention to this, which I'm confident, having spent some time in the schools, that there is attention, but a coordinated and clear effort is certainly part of our mission statement. So I think
Can I
that
ask a
it's important.
question, Pierre?
Yes.
So, I'm just asking because you've been on the school committee longer than me.
By a day or two.
Yeah, a little bit longer. So we're pretty, as you all can tell, we're pretty limited in like how much back and forth we can actually do at these meetings. And I was wondering if it might be possible, or if people are interested in maybe setting up a less formal meeting where we can just kind of have more of a back and forth, maybe with a small group of folks who are interested in talking, and maybe we can make that kind of an ongoing thing, like every few months, just to check in and see where we're at. Is that something we're allowed to do?
I think that as long as we do it consistent with open meeting laws,
Yeah.
right? And that basically requires that if 3 or more of us, more than 3. I always think
There's a
it's 3.
quorum.
If more than 3 of us gather in a place, it has to be a posted public meeting 48 hours in advance, describing the location and the agenda and the things to be talked about. Individuals meeting with people, I think the key is finding a way to ensure that the information comes in for everyone.
Yeah.
I think all of us individually hear from people in the community or observe things in the community and try to bring them back. So I think, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, in this age,
No,
I
that's
think of
good.
all the cautions first, but the bottom line is yes.
Okay.
I think that people can certainly, and if community people are having discussions and they want to invite a school committee member to be there, that's terrific. Don't be offended if you invite us all and we don't all show up because we can't, because then it becomes a school committee meeting.
One or two of us can show
Right,
up, yeah.
so it's not, we're bound by, and you can understand that. Everyone should have access to anything that we're formally discussing as a matter of policy. Okay.
And we can't speak for the whole school committee. If I was to show up at a meeting.
You can listen.
I can listen.
Right.
And I can share for information purposes the message. But I can't, none of us can speak for the school committee as a whole, unless we're here.
Right.
All right, well,
Taking a vote.
I think that, thank you, Sarah. I think certainly anything that encourages people to communicate the idea. Some people are more comfortable in a group of 5 talking with a school committee member and sharing an idea than they are here with the television on and all the rest. So,
Okay.
right?
All right, so I'll look into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the emphasis on communication here, there's no question, but that as long as we are fair in giving everyone the opportunity to speak and operate to the fullest extent that we can on concerns that we as individuals have, or known facts that are established, I think that the more information that's shared in the public forum, the better. Okay. Is that good? Thank you. This is terrific, and the conversation is terrific. I don't. The events are challenging.
So this will be back, we'll have this on our agenda again on Tuesday.
I think so. Given the gravity, I would agree that given the gravity of what's been expressed here, and I think that we'll all be doing a lot of work to get ourselves as well versed in the nature of the concerns that have been expressed, so that we can make progress in support of the teachers who are working in support of the students. Because in the end, everything that we're doing here, the mission of the school committee is to be advocates on behalf of the school children, of all the children in the community, but in particular, the school children. And so everything that we do serves that permanent guiding objective. All right?
I have another quick question for Nancy. So, we were talking about setting up you said the school is setting up, little meetings here and there, and that we might be able to have that schedule. Is it too early to have that scheduled at our next meeting, or is that just? I realize this is really quick, since this is a Wednesday meeting and that's it.
I guess the answer is I don't know.
Okay.
But I will get in touch with administration tomorrow, and I can let you know at that time.
If we could at least get a feel for the timeline of when things are happening, I think that would really help.
And another person mentioned some like counseling, or is there something in place for the kids who are feeling?
Well, we already have 2 guidance counselors and a school adjustment counselor
Okay.
in our high school.
And are like are they there for the students to access?
Yes, they are. Now, do we want to get some more counseling in, and maybe
Yeah.
some counseling from the outside? We're certainly going to look into that. But I want you to understand that we do currently have 3 counselors on staff in our high school, and they are available to our students.
And I guess my question is like, is there a plan in place, or are you thinking about a plan to actually have these students have access in terms of this specific event?
They have access to our guidance counselors for anything they need to have access for. Now, I think, what we're also talking about is trying to get some opportunities for students in small groups, and I think as Samantha mentioned, not just our student leaders, but any students want to get together in a group with a counselor or somebody to facilitate that group discussion. That's our plan, is to have more opportunities for that.
I think Casey, are you asking kind of, instead of us waiting, the guidance counselors waiting for the kids to come to them, are they actively stepping out
Yeah.
and coordinating these meetings?
Yes, is there more of like the proactive approach?
Yes, yes, they are definitely
you.
working on that.
Right? Sorry.
No, thank you.
And I think one of the things that will help, and I think, again, given the nature of this is going to be sensitive ground, but I think it's appropriate. Principal Burke reports to us on any manner of things related, and I think it would be terrific if not at our next meeting, at a subsequent meeting, if he could come and speak to this as well. I don't know what the sense of the meeting is as a whole, but I think that having people, my impression based on, if we follow the lead of the best of what the students have displayed, a conversation about something as challenging and difficult as it is will be handled professionally, appropriately, respectfully, and it helps everyone gather the information and get a sense of what's going on. So I would ask that we consider the best possible time for that to occur as well. Okay, so, yes, Karina.
Is the video for this going to be available to community members?
Yes, this will be put up by, I didn't say, there's a spiel, you reminded me, there's a spiel at the beginning of the meeting, and I forgot to say it. Okay, won't be in this job for long. The East Hampton Cable Access channel runs this on a loop, and I can't tell you off the top of my head the channel numbers, 62, 5, wait, somewhere, I can tell you, but it's definitely on, and it comes up periodically throughout the 7-day cycle so that people can watch.
You can find it on Facebook, on
Right.
East Hampton Media.
Oh, yes, see, you're asking
Or
a
you
tech
can Google
person.
East Hampton Media.
Yeah, there we go.
Post it online.
Peter.
Yes, sir.
Am I allowed to say something?
Sure, does this mean your meeting's over?
Yeah, our mee's over. I just have a question. I just...
You gotta state who you are.
Okay, I'm sorry. Salem Derby, 15 Westview Terrace, City Councilor. I have been hearing some... I apologize for missing the meeting. I just know that at this moment there seems like there's no school resource officer at the high school. Is that correct?
Our school resource officer is not at the high school, but we have 2 officers who are acting as liaisons in his place.
Are they spending the entire day at the high school?
The school resource officer did not spend the entire day. We have 1 school resource officer for our entire district.
Right.
He spends the majority of his time at the high school and probably next at the middle school and then at the elementary school and schools, and is on call but for come to any school at the request of a principal.
Okay.
And so the chief of police has done a great job of making sure that we still have a police officer who responds to our needs at the schools. And we're also very fortunate in East Hampton that we have a school resource officer. I have colleagues in many other districts where there are no liaisons with the police department, and having a liaison with the police department has been important for us in many ways. So yes,
Right.
it still is available to us.
So here's the second part of my question. Given the events, I feel, as a city councilor, it might be prudent to maybe focus a little extra attention on the high school. And I know that myself and some other councilors are going to be in touch with the chief. It would be great if we could all be a unified front saying we would like to see a police officer there for a majority of the day while this is kind of going on, because I know that there are some students that don't feel safe. And so I don't know if that's something that you guys would be on board with, but I know that it's something that we're going to be asking of the chief.
I think, you have every right to ask of the chief whatever you believe that, we need. I will say that the majority of the time that the police officers are in our district, even now, they're at our high school.
Okay.
So, we are feeling that the police department is working with us every step of the way.
Great. That's what I want to hear.
And I want to say that, again, having already confessed a degree of ignorance about this, but I get the sense from the conversations that I have had and the reports that have been made that the students are actually doing a remarkably good job of taking care of each other. And this is not in any way to diminish the desire that we have, but a number of people have talked about this feeling of fear. And I think that we will, Salem, do everything in our power to help attend to that immediately, not prospectively. I think the superintendent has been working on that. I think that the principal and the vice principal are taking initiatives, and it sounds as though there will be more taking place in the immediate days ahead to address that, because certainly the first objective in our school system is that all families and all students feel safe, that their child feels safe in the school system. So I think we're in accord with the city council, because I would imagine that's the goal.
Absolutely.
Right, that's the goal, is to address that piece of this concern, because that's the most immediate. So, yes.
I mean, I think the other thing, just to add to that conversation, I think I'm hearing the constituents who came tonight properly. I think some parents and students feel safer with more police presence, and for other parents and students, police presence can itself be the cause of fear.
I was thinking about that too.
So I think that it's not more police, it's appropriate presence of police.
Yeah, I think that's exactly true, and I would echo that. We know from, within the immediate neighborhood, the difficulties that have been presented through good faith efforts of school and police leaders in communities to find that balance. Right. Okay. So, and I'm gonna take a second, because unless there's other comments about this, I realize that some of you may not be as interested in the remaining agenda, that we're going to try to accomplish as much as we can in the next 10 minutes or so. And anything that we don't complete tonight, we will resume with next week. So if everybody who's interested in going wants to take 30 seconds to go, I'm not shooing anybody out the room, but I know there's that awkward moment. Unless you're my neighbor who's like, that's too much of him. I only have the one.
Can I take a picture of it?
You can. I have notes on mine. Does anybody have a clean copy?
Okay, you have another copy? This is it, just one page?
Yeah. Perfect.
Thank you very much.
The next item, we have an appeal to the school committee about a school choice decision that's being appealed. And then we have a topic that I think is likely to be postponed on concerns about addressing immigration. So, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
He's the guy who made the arrest. Okay.
But we should be getting a new one out soon, so.
Okay.
We'll do that.
So with that 30 seconds behind us? Yeah.
How would you describe him? He's an interim.
Oh.
Yeah, let's. He's a liaison to the police department. To the
Tomorrow?
To the.
We don't get to the field trip. Okay. Good point.
Because.
Is that tomorrow?
All right. I'm gonna.
Shannon's out.
I gotta interrupt the conversation. The interview will have to resume afterwards. Okay, so we're gonna go back to, and I wanna thank. See, this is why the wisdom of crowds. I'm gonna take the suggestion from the floor that we approve the field trip.
Because it's happening tomorrow.
Yes, please.
So I would entertain a motion.
I'm making, I'm a motion to approve the out-of-state field trip to Radio City Music.
Second.
I have a motion, and it has been seconded. Everyone clear? Yes, on this? Okay. Is there anyone who has any comments or questions?
I think it's a great idea.
Super. Okay. On the motion to approve the field trip, all in favor? Aye. I think it was unanimous. Terrific. Okay. Whew. I love checking things off. That's my little.
Okay.
Excellent. So, are we good? Okay, terrific. Let's return then, and I know, Marissa, that you had sort of spearheaded the addition of item C on the agenda. And Casey, I apologize. And what I anticipate, Casey, is that we're likely to just
Talk about it on Tuesday.
talk about it on Tuesday.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like, with the coming of April vacation and the importance of timeliness, we have an appeal from Mr. Moore We've seen the documentation that Mr. Moore has sent in. We've seen the response from the chair, as well as communication from the superintendent regarding, this is an appeal of a decision to open a school choice seat in the 2nd grade and the 4th grade at Maple School, correct? Yes?
I believe so.
Yes. The circumstances are that the family has moved out of the city, and that by law, the student can only remain in the school system if we open a school choice seat, as we've done. We've done that. I think everyone in the time that you've been on the committee has seen us vote to do that a number of times. So that is the question that is before us tonight. The recommendation of the superintendent on the basis of the input from the special education coordinator and the building principal is to deny the request, and I'm summarizing this here. There's more detail in it.
Peter, if I could clarify, it's
yeah.
Really not denying the request for a choice seat. It's that we don't have any choice seats open at this point. Now, in other situations, principals have been able to open a choice seat because their class sizes were small enough that they were able to do that. So that's why there are no choice seats in these particular grades, because the class sizes are so large or large enough that we don't want to add more students. So there were no choice seats opened in those grades initially.
And I apologize because I've gone out of order here. We did allow for public discussion, public comment on this, and I know at the end of that I may not have been clear that if someone wanted to speak to this issue that they could. So if I can back up with your permission, the rest of the committee, if there's anyone here who wants to speak directly to this appeal before we discuss it, we won't be able to respond necessarily to what you say, but we can hear you out.
I'm Tom Moore, I'm the one making the appeal.
Okay.
I just want to clarify that I'm not really looking for a full school of choice seat. I'm just looking to have my kids finish out the school year and knowing that they're going to move on to another school district, next year.
So I think it's kind of a technicality because so.
I don't know if that.
Yeah, so maybe I could explain that a little bit.
Thanks.
Wait till Peter comes back.
I apologize. I couldn't hear everything that was being said. I get that here.
So I just wanted to explain how this works because school districts provide public education for residents of their school district, as I think you all know. If a family moves out of a school district to another town or community, then that town or community is responsible for the education of their children. We always try to provide a transition time, for our families and our students who've had this happen, and that could vary from 1 to 2 weeks usually is what we allow. We try to work with the families to get that transition time. If the principal believes that there's a classroom that has few enough students that they could open a choice slot, that's what you've had happen. The principals have come to you and said, we've got a family that's moving out, they want their child to stay in our school, and I have enough room, so I'm asking the school committee to open a choice slot. But it's based on the number of students in the classroom. So in the classrooms, in the 4th grade classroom, I have that information. There are 25 students already in that 4th grade classroom. So no slots were opened in that 4th grade classroom at the beginning of the year. So there have been no choice slots. So that's why there isn't one available. And the building principal believes that 24 is the maximum. And we could have, technically, the same thing happen, a family move into East Hampton and have a 4th grade student. We have to take those students. So it's really about, your district of residence, and that's where you send your children. But we do try to work with our families to make for a smooth transition. And based on class size, really predominantly class size and that we don't have any choice slots open, the principal and the special ed director recommended to me that, that we don't, well, we really can't allow, and we haven't allowed students to stay for that length of time in the past. We've allowed them to stay, if they're close to, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks before the graduation, yes, we've allowed them to do that from the end of the year. And I don't have the data on what we've done recently, but those are the issues. The special ed director and the principal both believed that if they were able to help the family transition their students to their new school, that it would be actually in the students' best interest if they could do it now while we still are working with the students. We know the students well. Our administration and our teachers would be in contact, and our special ed director would be in contact with their equal parts, equal positions at the new school to help with this transition, as opposed to allowing a whole summer to go by, and then, of course, the new school would contact us about the children, but that would have been, older information than what we have now. So they both came to me and said, and I asked them, what their thoughts about it were, but those were their beliefs, that this would be in the best interest of the children to be able to transition them now, and that they didn't feel that they could open a choice slot. Does that make sense to everybody?
Does that make sense? Yes.
Are we only allowed to open choice slots at the beginning of the school year?
No, we can open them.
We've opened them, we've had votes this year,
Yeah.
but we've opened them in similar, but as Nancy has pointed out, Superintendent Policy has pointed out, similar but distinct circumstances.
And if you open it, then is it, I guess I'm just sort of following the logic of, it's opening a spot, but another way to think of it is it's converting a spot because the students are already in the
Right.
classroom. So
Now, the other thing is that I don't know, and this is another piece of it, if there was anyone on the wait list for a choice opening for that grade, then we would have to do a lottery. We would put all those students' names in a hat, or families' names in a hat, and we would pick one. So if we opened a choice lot, if we had kids on the waiting list, and I honestly don't know whether we do or not.
But we have not this year used the lottery option in any of the previous cases, right? When in the previous cases that we voted this year to open choice slots, and we've done this on 3
Yes,
occasions.
yes, right.
When I've looked through it, we've never had to go there.
Right.
So, I'm curious, other questions or comments from members of the committee? I've bought myself a little more time, I hope. Sorry, I know it's rude to be texting in a meeting, but I was trying to buy a little more time.
But so do you understand that some grades, for instance, one that has 25 kids and is a 4th grade, we don't want more than 25 kids in a classroom. So that grade, we didn't take any choice students in. We didn't open any choice slots. That doesn't mean that there weren't families who put their name on a wait list, hoping that something would open up and that they could get a slot. I don't know that. I would have to find that out. I did not look for that information before tonight. And in that case, then you have to put all the students who are on a wait list into a lottery and choose one.
Okay, so I just have a quick question, just to clarify. The student is currently in the school.
Yes.
There are 2 students, one in second grade and one in 4th grade.
So we're not making the class bigger. We're just holding it at that. If we were to open up a choice spot, we would be holding at its present classroom size.
We
Correct.
would, unless another family moved into our district.
The other question I have is, do we have any policy for emergency situations like this? In terms of, I've heard that, sometimes we've done this on a 2-week basis. We're approaching the end of the school year, and I understand that the feeling might be that they would like to finish that year. Do we have a policy? Do we have a standard where we say, this is the cutoff line for a family that
I don't
moves in?
believe that we have a policy that establishes a cutoff date. We have in the past tried to be accommodating with families, but the mechanism, rather than a policy, the mechanism really is that by state law, this is what happens barring, right? So when a family circumstance like this arises, the request is put to the building administrator to convert the seat. And I think that's a fair way to talk about it, because effectively that's what's happening by calling it now an open, right, a school choice seat rather than a resident seat. And then what has happened, we are going to have more information about it. I think a vote on this will be taken at our next meeting. Because one of the pieces of information that we're trying to determine is we only hear about 2 cases. We hear when the building administrator approves the request and it comes to us, or we hear when the building administrator denies the request and the family appeals to the school committee. There's a third category, which is the building administrator denies a request and the family doesn't appeal. And I've asked the superintendent to try to provide that information for us to inform our decision. Because my sense is that all we've gotten this year are cases where we've been asked and we've said yes. Right? But asked by, excuse me, I want to clarify, asked by the building administrator.
We do have another case pending for another request of a family that's moved out and wants to stay, but in another classroom that has a high level of students. And the teacher has, or the principal rather, has said there are no spaces and it's not in the best interest for the child to stay. A very big class size.
What is the current date at which the students will use transfer to?
We asked that, we gave them and asked that they would transfer after April vacation.
Okay, so it'll be okay for the
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and that's part of why we asked to move that. I would say, and I inquired to get some of this information from the superintendent prior to the meeting, because I read this, and I read it in 2 ways. One is micro, and I read Mr. Moore's appeal and the supporting documents that are provided with it. And every instinct that I have is to say that we want to be open. If there are students who wish to be educated in the East Hampton Public School District, that we do everything possible we can to accommodate it. In the balance, on the other side, is the recommendation of the superintendent informed by the special needs leader and and the building principal. In this case, the principal of Maple School making a recommendation. So we have, in a sense, sort of conflicting expert advice about what is educationally sound. I don't know if expert's the best, but there were authorities speaking to the children's case in the documents that Mr. Moore provided, and we have heard from the superintendent. So I know that I'm torn, and I would say this to you because I think at a macro level, right, as well as at a micro, I completely can, I guess, I'm not an expert, I'm not an authority on this, but as a parent, my thought is I can get the logic of let's finish the year. If there's other things going on in my children's lives, if there can be this constant, perhaps that's good. And that's sort of my default as a parent and as an educator. But I don't, I don't know that that's all that we can be considering here. I think we have to look at this, and again, to jump back out to the macro level, one of the things that is so frustrating for me is to think, now wait a minute, we've got people who want to be educated here. It becomes a school choice spot, which means it addresses some financial concerns that we had in the flow of students choicing in and choicing out, and our hands are tied because of the size of the classroom and our the advice that we're getting from authoritative staff about what we should do. So I've been deliberating a lot on this, and I'm still not clear. I would be prepared to make a motion that we consider granting this for purposes of us having a discussion, but I think given the time that we're likely to just have to postpone it until next week, and I think it might be beneficial. We'd be switching out. Deb will be here, unfortunately. I'm taking students to the State House that afternoon, and I make no promise about getting back from Boston in time for the meeting, but it was an option that in fact, one last item that I'd like to put on the agenda is, can we push our meeting next week out by even a half an hour?
Yeah.
But we could talk about that when we're done with comments on this.
Yeah, I think we should take it up on Tuesday. I'm feeling similarly to you here. And I also, you know, I definitely feel for the family as well, having kids who have that many needs and who benefit that much from structure and routine and things staying as the same as possible. I definitely have a lot of compassion for that, so.
And I would emphasize too that in the course of my conversations with Nancy and while I didn't speak directly with the principal and the special education director, I think they have that too.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, you know, this is a, boy, we're stuck.
Yeah.
And boy, we wish we could find a good way out of this that's a win-win instead of anything less than that. We just haven't yet reached a place where we have all the information where we can make that happen by vote tonight.
Yeah.
So with your permission, I would ask that we table this question and resume consideration of it. I apologize, I'm sure you came tonight and very patiently waited, hoping that it would be resolved. We have important matters, large and small, great and small here tonight. So thank you for your patience with this, because I know nothing's more important to us than our children and their welfare. And we're going to continue to want to talk about this and think about it. And I don't want to squeeze a decision in here at the end of this meeting. So if I can ask, can we just review the schedule for Tuesday? I know that the policy meeting was going to occur afterwards.
Yeah.
I thought that am I mistaken about that? I apologize. Was it going to happen early?
You couldn't make it, and
Right.
so I didn't post it. I don't know if we still have time.
Okay.
We have time to post.
I think we have
We have
time.
time to post.
All right.
So, yeah, my thought was that since I wasn't going to be able to make it back for the regular, but you know, we're scheduled to finish at 5 at the State House.
Okay.
My students have said to me that they want to
We
eat.
have two.
So you're going through the McDonald's
Right.
drive-through on the pike,
They,
right?
they were hoping for something more substantial than that.
Okay.
I want to be as objective as I can and not disparage any eatery choices. So I was thinking that with good fortune, I could get back by 7.
Okay.
But I know that that's not, we have moved away from a 7 o'clock
That's
meeting
really
time.
good fortune, Peter.
Yeah, you're finishing and then
Driving.
Can we do the policy, well, I don't want you guys to stay here for the entire night, I was gonna say.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask if we could go at 7. Right, I'm on both committees, and I'm sorry, this was something, and this benefits East Hampton as well, because it's part of the We the People civic education program. People know how important that is. We're doing a presentation to schools, or doing a presentation before legislators to advocate for more funds for civic education in the state.
Well, anybody who's going to advocate for more funds.
And that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to give the legislators a chance to see what civic education can do. And I know it sounds like, and you know what? Trading out Deb for me is a net gain, so it's okay if you guys want to stick with 6 and let me know what you decide.
Can we do 6:30 and just hope
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
make it? Or
Yeah.
7 and hope that you make it, I don't know.
Or 6:30.
6:30 and, break some speeding laws on the pike.
Yeah.
With a bus full of students.
Yeah, I'll be driving a minibus, so I think it'll be 65 miles an hour the whole way and hope for no traffic. Yeah, I see.
Point of information, when's the last time you left Boston?
I know, but I'm
3 hours getting back.
I know. I understand. I've had remarkably good luck of late. I'm hoping that the spirit that carries me in and the spirit that carries me out will
What time are you leaving Boston?
no later than 5.
Oh, okay.
That's the plan, you know.
You're
This is an event that involves legislators. You see how good we are about sticking to our schedule? I have no idea. They may have no questions for the kids. They may have a ton of questions for the kids. So I think you guys, if you want, if you're willing to move to 6:30 and that's not a hardship,
6:30 is
great.
fine.
At the very least, I can perhaps get here in time to hear the tail end of the conversation and learn what you've decided. I think that we've said exactly the hard part, and I've shared with Mr. Moore, I'm stuck about this.
Yeah.
And normally I defer to what the superintendent and the building principal recommend, but in this case, I'm glad that we have the opportunity to hear this, because if there's a way that we can make this work, I hope that we can find that out. And there may not be. I don't want to give you false hope, but I don't feel like closing the door right now makes sense.
Right.
I have two questions and concerns. We're talking about perhaps changing the time without Deb. So
Correct.
I think that we probably should not make it definite until we have checked that time.
Thank you.
We do
I
have time
think
to
that's
check with
a
her
good-
tonight.
Yep.
And then post a change in time tomorrow, in time for this meeting. And then the only question I'm wondering is, we do want to talk about this issue, But it looks as though we will also be putting another large piece on the agenda, which is tonight's issue, you know, the community concerns that we have. I'm okay with doing a 6:30 or a 7, that's fine, but this may be a longer night.
Yeah.
Just making
Okay, we have
everyone aware.
policy after that.
You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
I'm not sure you could do policy after that.
Yeah.
I have no idea how long
Well, how
next
about-
week's meeting might go.
Maybe,
I think it's straightforward.
Yeah, I think this session we could at least meet briefly to be sure that there's nothing that we can take care of efficiently.
another meeting.
Well, yeah, to set up another meeting, but also if there's something that's just
That's
procedural, because sometimes
I think it's too very simple procedure.
yeah, I think it's two procedural policies, so I think we could expedite that at the end of the meeting, and I'm willing to stay.
Okay, yeah, I can stay all night.
Right.
So, should we
Bring
leave
some
it
coffee.
up to the air, that we're all available 6:30 or 7?
6:30 and
And
7.
then
Does 6:30 work,
that's-
Marissa? I know.
6:30
Well,
works
and
for you,
and this is
Deborah?
all conditional on
Yeah.
Deb saying that
Not
she can do
so.
it.
Are you
No,
guys
7
in
is
touch
fine,
with
too.
them?
I will get in touch with Deb tonight. I was gonna call her.
6:30?
I don't know whether she was able to
Okay.
watch any of it, and
Okay.
I forget whether we're in real time or not, but I was gonna check with Deb tonight,
Okay, great.
okay? I appreciate
And we'll get back
your,
to you about what time it is too.
yes, we'll confirm with you, yes, the superintendent's office will let you know, yep.
Yeah.
Whatever time we set directly, and we'll make it the first, well, I guess I can't control the agenda, but we'll try to get to it as quickly as we can on the agenda. So, and I want to commend everyone for getting together quickly. A lot of this came up rapidly, and even with the public meeting laws, I think this was about as quickly as we could get this many people together. This is a extraordinary event, and I think that, you know, you've all said this in other ways, and most of the people who should hear this have left the room, but you know, when communities face challenges is when you sometimes see them at their best. And I think that that's what's going to happen in East Hampton here, led by the example of the kids, the students. I think we're going to, you know, we're going to make progress. And I think, as we've talked about on other issues, if we model civil discourse about something that becomes uncivil at certain times, you know, again, I was listening to the radio as I was driving over here tonight and talking about how our system has become more divisive and less unifying because we're sort of winner take all. They were talking about the nuclear option in the Senate. You know, whenever you move to winner takes all, once you get 51, it means 49% of the people walk away unhappy from a lot of decisions. And I think to the extent that we can encourage the community to find as broad a consensus and to embrace well past 51% of the people, we're gonna serve East Hampton and the kids here really well. So I thank you all for your efforts to do that. And with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn? Is that the one?
That's the one. Second. Motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for staying late and long with the notes.